The horror community on YouTube is at risk at the moment, as far as I'm concerned. This is due to the YouTube Advertiser mass walkout, which is happening across the website at the moment. If you don't know what that's all about, there are many people who have made videos on this. Just search the website, you'll find a ton of them, and they made far better videos than I ever would on the topic. But basically, advertisers don't want their adverts appearing on videos which seem to promote terrorist organizations, hate speech, things that they wouldn't want their products associated with. Now, as a concept, it sounds pretty fair. You know, like if you pay for an advertisement, you should be able to say, okay, well, I don't want this. I don't want people to think that I'm endorsing something terrible. But there's a lot of underhanded stuff going on with it. I think it's a mix of people not understanding how advertising works on the internet, people overreacting. I also think some companies are probably using it as an excuse to hold back their advertisements, and then they can negotiate a better deal with Google so they don't need to pay as much down the road. So I think that's a possibility. But in the end, regardless of how you feel about the debate, it came down to the fact that YouTubers are no longer making as much money on YouTube. For some, it's a massive drop. I saw a video the other day with Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, and I think they were talking about like an 85% drop in revenue. So this is happening now across the horror community. And so first of all, there aren't enough ads to go around. At least that's one of the arguments. And second of all, and this is a more worrying thing, and it's why I'm making this video, is that I've noticed that increasingly videos in the horror community do not have adverts on them anymore. So I watched a great video by Rob Dyke. You can go and I'll link that down below. You can go and check out his video on this and how that's affecting his channel. But I've noticed it on a bunch of other really big horror channels where there doesn't seem to be any adverts on any of the videos now. So I would imagine they're making next to no revenue all of a sudden from their YouTube channels. Now for Ghastly Tales, for our channel, it doesn't really affect us all that much. We've had all of our videos demonetized like practically overnight. It doesn't make a huge difference to us because we're not a big enough channel to really make a proper revenue. It's like a little bit every now and then, and that's just went back into the channel, to be honest. So that doesn't affect us. We do this just for the love of it. We don't have bills hanging over our heads where we have to make Ghastly Tales a success to pay for those bills. It's a hobby, it's a passion for all of us. But for the bigger channels who took that leap and decided, okay, we're going to make this a full-time thing, this is a really worrying trend, because all of a sudden they can't make money from their videos. Now, I know some people are going to probably enjoy that because there is this argument that, especially in the horror fiction community, that some people are monetizing videos where it's not really all of their content. They're not asking writers permissions and things like that to monetize the videos and make money from them. So I understand that argument, but I think regardless of where you fall on that debate, the as it seems, the blanket banning of adverts on any video that seems to have horror content on it, that can only be bad for the horror community. It means you cannot. It means eventually, if it stays this way, you really not have like professional horror enthusiasts anymore on YouTube. You'll not have people who can dedicate their entire working life towards the genre, and I think that is a dangerous thing. It will have a knock-on effect for everyone, and even the writers who maybe think, oh well, people are monetizing my stories and they're not asking permission, and that is a big issue. But even for people like that, for those who do get permission to post narrations of your stories, you're no longer going to have that avenue to meet new readers, to, you know, because I've certainly benefited from people narrating my stories. I've gained a lot of readers through that. People have heard my stories that otherwise would never have heard or read. anything that I've written. So I suppose from a selfish perspective, it kind of has an impact there. But you know, horror as a genre, there's always this moral panic that surrounds it. You always get to this point where people are like, let's ban stuff. In the early 1980s, we had the video nasties craze in the UK, where they started banning certain videos from being sold in the UK because they had like a lot of gore in them and things like that. It always seems to come down to horror because there's this idea that somehow horror as a genre corrupts people. And I would make the exact opposite argument. You know, when I was a kid, hearing Little Red Riding Hood for the first time, a fairy tale, but many of the fairy tales are really dark, and even darker sometimes if you read the original stories, even darker than a lot of horror is today. But when I heard Little Red Riding Hood for the first time, I got the message. It was, be wary of strangers. Don't go walking into dark places on your own. You know, don't talk to strangers. You know, it was a simple message, and I got it. When my dad would read The Telltale Heart to me, I understood that it meant that all evil deeds have consequences. You cannot wash blood off of your hands. I got it. I understood that. When I read Dracula for the first time when I was a kid, I was taken aback by its message, which was that friendship can conquer all. You know, these are important things. So horror explores morality. It definitely does that. And maybe sometimes some elements of horror are on the boundaries of what society decides is good taste and bad taste. But it explores morality in a way that allows especially kids to experience fear and their insecurities in a safe environment. The first time you experience that sort of fear is maybe watching a horror film or hearing, you know, bar waking up in the night when the light's off when you're a wee kid. But that's something that helps people to explore fears in their life, and it gets us closer to the terrors that are out there in real life. And that's why horror's really, really important. I think that's why there's such a fascination with it. I think that's why probably some of the first stories that were ever told by human beings were probably ghost stories. You know, we have a fascination with it, but it also helps us. It's like some sort of psychotherapy. That's what horror is. So this idea that somehow horror is not advertiser unfriendly or should not be enjoyed by people of all ages. I will admit some elements of horror, yeah, definitely should be for adults only. But there's a lot of it which works for children, and it's important for kids to read these things and to explore ideas. And this idea now that advertisers are terrified of their videos being put on something that promotes any sort of horror just seems utterly ridiculous to me. And I think it's really going to hurt the community if it stays like this. I don't know if it will stay like this. I'm hoping that it won't. I'm hoping that it'll calm down, that they'll reach some sort of agreement, they'll bring in a new system. But it kind of feels like what we're experiencing right now is the new system. This is the new system that YouTube has at the moment, which is to basically just say, well, if you've got horror in your title or horror in your tags, then you just don't get adverts. And it's like chopping off an arm, you know, it's like chopping off an entire section of the YouTube community. And it's not just the horror community's problem. I watched a video with H3H3, which is a massive channel. They do parodies and they do satire and commentary, and it's all comedy though. And they are no longer having their videos monetized really because it's offensive. It's offensive to talk about religion. It's offensive to talk about politics. It's offensive if you swear in a video. It's offensive if you mention religion. It's ridiculous. And I really feel for everyone in all the different communities across YouTube that are being impacted on, especially people like, if this is, I mean, I can imagine just being like a new YouTuber and your YouTube channel explodes. All of a sudden you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and you look at your revenue and you think, my God, I can do this full time. I can create, I can convey a message. I can do this full time. This could be my job now. And I can imagine just, yeah, I quit my day job and this is what I'm doing now, and all of a sudden this happens. There must be people in that boat. There must be people who just made that decision and then this happened, and all of a sudden they're making either nothing or very, very little compared to what they used to. I really hope, I think the only way to sort it out is for advertisers to understand that there's a difference between wanting your product associated with ISIS or a terrorist organization or even hate speech, and having your product associated with a ghost story. You know, there's a big difference there. You know, I mean, A Christmas Carol is a ghost story. You know, I mean, it's got a wonderful moral message in it. You know, and you don't want your product associated with something like that. You know, it seems ridiculous, and it's also, YouTube is such a vast entity now that it can't judge all of these videos on a case by case basis. So it means that much of this is being automated. You know, although I have heard that they've hired. Sorry, I've got a weird bit of hair sticking out at the back there. I have heard that they've hired people to start vetting videos and all that sort of thing. There's no way they can hire enough people to cover all the videos that are going up, never mind all the ones that are already uploaded. I mean, it's, I don't know how many, millions upon millions of videos. So it just means that they're resorting to this sort of blanket way of doing things, where it's just like, okay, well, if we just ban the horror tag then from the advertisers, then that's it, that wipes out that part and we don't need to worry about that anymore. And, you know, there are a lot of people from different communities who made YouTube what it is, and they're being punished now for something that they didn't do. And it's a shame. I mean, I've always felt that if I had ever got to the point where one of my YouTube channels was like big enough to say, right, this is what I'm doing full time, I wouldn't have put all my eggs in one basket, because I would always have worried that something like this would happen. That's not to say that the people who this is happening to, that they're to blame for doing that and putting all their eggs in one basket. You know, it's they're not to blame for that. But I think that I would always have been like, right, okay, I'm going to try and still have another revenue stream. As for us, like I say, it doesn't. My voice went all 12-year-old Michael there. As for us, it doesn't affect us, but as a fan in the horror community, it's going to affect me if some of my favourite channels they're either going to not put out as much content anymore because it's not going to be worth their while, or they're going to change the type of content and sanitize it to the degree that maybe some of your favourite horror channels stop putting out horror videos and content and they just do other stuff. Or, and I think this is going to happen as well, you're going to see some big channels potentially just disappear. And I know people are going to say, well, if you have a love for it, if you have a passion for it, you should keep on doing it. Well, you know, even take our channel, which is a small channel, like, it's hard to keep it going. And I'm a freelancer, so I can work sometimes doing Ghastly Tales stuff into my schedule. But it's hard to keep things going. People have families, people have, you know, other jobs. People, you know, it is difficult to just it's a big effort to constantly put. It depends what type of content. Some people do just throw videos up, but like a video like this doesn't take a long time to do. But like the videos that we do take, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've had videos for this channel where it's taken me like 15 hours, and it would be longer than that. That's not equating writing time. That's like narrating, and I record all my music from scratch. You know, so it takes time to do all of that. And in the case of like real horrors and things like that, finding all of the images for the videos and stuff. I mean, woe is me, right? I mean, if it was there are people who are doing much worse jobs and working on YouTube, and I think we should recognise that. But still, just think about your line of work and someone pulls the carpet underneath, or the rug out from underneath you. Pulling the carpet from underneath you would take an awful amount of effort. Pull the rug from underneath you, and all of a sudden your livelihood's gone. Again, for us, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does mean that if this continues, that it doesn't really matter how big our channel would get. Like, we maybe wouldn't ever be able to say we want to do horror full time. But I think our model, well, in my head, our model has always been, we want to sell things. So we want to, like, we make all this free content, but maybe in the long run, once a month we'll have like a special episode of the podcast where it's like it's $1, and if you want to support the show, you can buy that one episode. Or when we make our films, release DVDs of them and things like that. So that's always been our kind of idea, that, you know, we should, if we're going to generate money, then it should be for producing things. I know Patreon I mean, I have a Patreon for my writing. We have thought about that in the past, but I don't think it really needs it at the moment. I mean, the channel runs at a loss, but it's a passion project for us more than anything else. We just love doing it. But I can totally understand how some channels who have been doing this for a long time, and it's been their job, might all of a sudden just feel, right, well, I'm not doing this anymore because it's not generating any money. I can understand that as well. Anyway, I'm waffling on now. This video has become a ridiculous length. Yeah, check out links in the description below. I don't know what this is. And we've got some more stuff coming up, narrations that we've done, and mostly original material as usual. And that's it. But I'm going to go now. Just, if there are horror channels out there that you really love, and they do have Patreon accounts, and they do have things like that, they've got merchandise, or they've got the ways that you could support them, and you have a little bit of free cash that, you know, I would say throw it their way. You know, certainly that's what I'm going to be doing to some of the channels that I want to support, and I have done in the past. So I think that's a way to help, but I don't think that's a long-term, I don't think Patreon or anything like that is like a long-term solution to these issues, unless you use your Patreon. If you use your Patreon to actually, like I do with my Patreon, which is, I don't do a monthly thing. People only get charged on the Patreon once I've produced something. So if I write a new short story, then it will go to people, and people can decline payment if they don't want to pay for it. You know, I think that's the best model. But anyway, waffling on again as usual. I'm going to go. There should be a new narration up on Friday. But support your horror channels, and spread the word. Maybe if enough people get together, YouTube will listen, although at the moment kind of looking doubtful. But there's always